It's another Tuesday afternoon, and I'm delighted to have you join us for another interesting conversation on women speaking. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nancy Caroline Ayot. I am your host. Today, we are shining a light on a deeply troubling issue, which is tech-facilitated violence against women and girls. Technology has opened incredible opportunities for connection, learning, and empowerment, but for many women and girls, the same tool has been used as avenues for abuse. To unpack this complex issue, we are joined by an outstanding panel of experts from tech-focused organizations who are working every day to make online and digital spaces safer. Together, we will explore the nature of tech-enabled violence, its implications for women's rights, and the solutions that we can push for as a community. I'll introduce them, starting from my extreme left, coming in. On the show, we have Beatrice Kayaga from Internet Society. Beatrice, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We also have Sanyu Murungi from Her Internet. Sanyu, we are happy to have you here.
Thank you.
We have Yasmin Ahmed from Femtech Law Initiative. Yasmin, thank you so much for joining us on Women Speaking.
Thank you for having me.
And then we have a show regular, Aloyo Nyeko from Fida, Uganda.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. And then we also have Irene Marunga from Wougnet, that is Women of Uganda Network. Thank you for joining us, Irene.
Thank you.
We would like to dive straight into the conversation, and as a regular, Omega, you usher us into the conversation. How would you define technology-facilitated violence against women and girls in Uganda, and what are the common forms of online abuse Ugandan women experience?
So, technology-facilitated gender-based violence. First of all, when you say regular, you bias the audience because now they're looking at me like, it's regular, but technology-facilitated gender-based violence is a special form of violence because of one thing, the medium in which it operates, right? So before you even talk about what TFGBV is, to abbreviate it, you must first of all look at what violence is in itself as a what? A form of aggression towards women, right? So it's not enough to say that, what is TFGBV? When we look at TFGBV separate from what violence is in communities and in societies, then we take away from its real root cause, which is the deeply ingrained misogyny in societies, right? So again, we must not to take you back, we must go back into conversations of the way that we look at women in society, right? I like to give the example of, we used to have a house help who was a man, and we were watching television, and he said, eyo golo ya chikazi, right? Because it was a goal that was so easy to get, right? It hit the man's leg and it entered. So what is violence in society, right? It's violent. I don't know how to even phrase it. What is violence in society? If Katushabe slapped me right now, that would be deemed a violent act. What makes TFGB a unique form of violence in society is the medium in which it occurs, right? So when the internet came, it provided a new source of accessibility. It provided a new source of having contact with other human beings, right? That we could actually be here, but even a person that is home would actually have access to me right now. And I think very many women on this show have experienced this. So the question of medium. So today morning, in defining what TFGBV is, it's medium, right? Just have that word at the back of your mind, medium, accessibility. That accessibility has changed. What it was 20 years ago is not what it is today, right?
Yes.
So what are the common forms of TFGB? I'm so sure very many people know what exactly this is. There is cyber stalking, there is doxing, there is phishing, right? It all, just think of what a phone is, right? And then when you think of a phone as being an agent of abuse, right? Not to take up so much of the rest of the panel's time, I think that gives us at least an ushering into the conversation.
I would like to ask a follow-up question. Many women, especially those who pursue public life, media, politics, and other forms, politicians, are mainly targeted. Why do you think so?
Why are they targeted? Again, ask yourself. Again, ask yourself the question of why are they targeted in real life, right? When I was Googling what misogyny meant today, there are so many explanations that came up, but for me, the one that was interesting, a deeply ingrained prejudice towards women. Because when we think of misogyny, we think of violence and a deeply ingrained prejudice against women. And I was thinking about a young cousin of mine, Isaiah, and he's a young boy. So when you think of misogyny, think of that boy as having a prejudice that is growing day by day, right? So when he grows up and in his whole life all he has had is that, you know what, women can't be leaders. Then when he grows up, he will have this prejudice, right? And then we'll categorize this prejudice as misogyny, right? The lack of women accessing political and public spaces, women being only in the kitchens, things like that, right? So the same situation, I read what digital rights are, and one of the explanations was that digital rights are manifestation of human rights in the digital realm, right? So the things that we see in real life, those are the things that must be on what? On the internet. To again go so far into the conversation, something that was interesting, I was with Murungi on Saturday, and something that we were discussing was the question of identity in real life, right? Vis-a-vis anonymity, being anonymous on the internet. I have a colleague at work who likes to call themselves opulent cat when we are editing documents, and I say, you know what, I'm not going to interact with you like this, it just scares me. But I was thinking in my head, if we were in the real society, who would have the right to call themselves out? They will call you out, right? So why is it that we have a digital realm that is not reflective of the human experiences that we have? Why is it that we have laws in place, or we have systems in place, but these systems are actually not being what? Placed into the world of Facebook, into the world of Instagram. So to wrap it up, the issues that cause about TFGBV on the digital side of the world are the same issues that cause TFGBV in the real world.
Thank you so much. So the abuse spills over.
The abuse just spills over.
Thank you. And speaking of laws, I would like to invite Beatrice to the conversation. Beatrice, what are the laws? What laws currently exist, and are they effectively addressing the tech facilitated violence against women and girls?
Thank you so much. To follow up from my colleague's discussion, she has managed to actually lay down some of the forms of violence or online violence, how it manifests in the online spaces. And she spoke about things like cyber stalking, things like doxing. And in Uganda, in as much as our laws are not specific, oh, this is online for online GBV, we have laws that are existent that can be used for someone to protect themselves against technology-facilitated violence. For starters, we could start with our constitution. When we look at the right to privacy, is one of the rights or one of the sections of the laws that exist to protect us from technology-facilitated violence. And how is that so? The law is saying that everyone is entitled to privacy. No one should infringe on the privacy of another person except if they have the consent to. How does this connect to the digital space? In the digital realm, we've seen where people basically circulate intimate images of other people without their consent. Whether that photo was taken with my consent, but I'm not giving you the consent to publish it. We've seen doxing, where we see people's individual identifying information being thrown in public spaces. For example, medical records, employment records, we've seen them being thrown around in the online spaces. We saw, was it Chosen Becky's medical records? This is an incident that happened just a few weeks back, but did the person have the permission to post those kinds of records in the online spaces? So this is how doxing actually happens. So if this individual can go ahead, they can sue, because how did you have access to my medical records? How are they how are they showing up in the online spaces? So that was a violation of her privacy, if at all she knows or she doesn't know. So for me, that under our constitution alone, we are looking at the right to privacy as one of the rights that are usually violated when technology-facilitated violence is actually taking place. Again, the same constitution provides for the rights of women under Article 33, that the government of Uganda shall do all things within its power to ensure that the rights of women are respected. And this is inclusive of also the rights within the online spaces. it's just that digital rights in our context are sometimes not looked at as rights, right? But when we look at that Article 33, if my right as a woman has been violated, if I'm experiencing technology-faceted violence, I can proceed under that section of the law, under the Constitution, to show that my right has been violated, and the government of Uganda has not put in place measures to ensure that I, as a woman who is using these technologies, I'm actually being protected. Away from our Constitution, of course, we have the Computer Misuse Act. Of course, it provides for cyber stalking, online harassment. It provides for also things to do like offensive communication, because now these are the major forms through which technology-faceted violence is manifesting. For example, when it comes to stalking, stalking could happen. The law provides for it under the Computer Misuse Act, and it protects us against stalking. And how does stalking manifest? Someone may send you unwanted messages repetitively. We've all heard about the case of Isiko Brian, who kept sending messages to this MP telling her how he loved her. But it was stalking. It is a form of stalking. It's a form of annoyance. And how the community treated it, it was more of, who is this woman who is rejecting love, right? Mm-hmm. So downplaying the whole situation, saying, no, it's not such a big deal why you to reject love. But when you look at it from the computer misuse, this was stalking. This was constant harassment. And our very same Computer Misuse Act provides for the law against stalking. And the reason as to why these laws are not as effective as they are, I think it comes down to implementation. Because in the process, realized that Sylvia Rabogo requested for an injunction against this young man who kept sending messages regardless of the ongoing court case. And at the end of the day, one of her greatest questions, I remember, was like, how do I make this stop? Right? Mm-hmm. So for me, I would say that the laws are existent, that can be used to protect us against technology-faceted violence as women, but the effectiveness, the implementation of some of these laws. If we are in a court process and someone is saying, how do I make this stop? What has happened to the court order that is supposed to stop this young man from sending these kinds of messages?
Allow me play devil's advocate.
Mm-hmm.
You know, usually we have also freedom of expression enshrined in the Constitution, and I believe it's one of the rights that people express on the internet as well. So where do we draw the line between freedom of expression and harassment? Where do we draw the line between somebody expressing themselves freely and harassing another person, or putting another person through some such form of abuse?
So when we go back to the nature of how sexual harassment or any form of harassment occurs, it's like the person who you are directing these forms of messages to doesn't like them, right? It is one thing for you to want to express yourself. Yes, you're expressing love to this individual, but this individual has told you, no, I don't want your love, right? This goes back to the misogyny our colleague was talking about. The fact that community has groomed men to think they are entitled, or a woman is not supposed to say no to me, to my advances. You see, that is where that entitlement comes from. That I'm going to send her these messages repetitively until she says yes, right? So that becomes harassment the moment the person says, I don't want these kinds of messages from you, right? More so if they're directed to me as an individual. So you are supposed to take that in another space where your messages will be acknowledged. So for me, that it is not even a thin line. It is evident. If someone has said, no, stop sending me your messages, as an individual, as a man in this community, you should stop. That means that they are unwanted. That is why we are having offenses such as offensive communication. Someone is telling you, no, you're annoying me, right? So now I want you to be prosecuted for annoying me.
I understand that to the extent of sexual advances and all that. But for example, a person in public life, we have, for example, if you've heard of the French president and his wife suing Candace Owens, the media, do I call her a media personality?
Yeah.
Yes, she went online and she started telling people information that may or may not be true about the first family in France. And of course I know that they are suing her. So you would say that it's her right to report as a media person, or to talk about people who readily provide their information on the internet, that it is her right to talk. So what I really want to understand is, where do we draw the line between the freedom of expression, the freedom to report, and then people's individual rights, the protection, the right to privacy? Like, I mean, to that extent, where do we draw the line?
So when it comes to freedom of expression, generally, our constitution provides for it, right?
Yes.
That all your views as an individual are welcome.
Yes.
You can express them. You can use the media. You can use any other platform to express your views for the purposes of Uganda. Unlike Uganda, in America, their entire constitution is founded on expression as their right, right? So we see that Candace Owens, as a woman, an American woman, for her, she feels as per her jurisdiction, it's her right to express whatever kinds of views that she carries as an individual. But then where does this infringe on the private lives of the first family in France? This is if at all they had sent her a cease and desist to tell her, you know what, the kind of information you are putting out about us is not the kind of information that we'd like. Yeah. And if she continued, then for me, I feel that that was a violation of their right to privacy as individuals, because if this is not information that they have put out there in public, first of all, it could be misleading information, disinformation, because most of the times disinformation is calculated in such a way that someone sits down and comes up with wrongful information and then circulates it in the media. And misinformation happens that when people who are ignorant of such information just keep circulating. So that is how it occurs. So at the end of the day, if an individual sends you and says, this is infringing on my right to privacy, or it's bringing me psychological harm in one way or the other, then as an individual also, you are supposed not to proceed because you are violating their rights. But then also, as you enjoy your fundamental rights, make sure you are respecting the rights of other people. I may have a right to say all things, but at the end of that day, at the back of the mind, I have to have it that as long as what I'm saying is not infringing on other people's rights, then so be it. There is information that is within the public space. Because that information is not usually protected, then that is okay, right? But then there is information that is within the private space, in the private sphere, that no one is basically entitled to. If someone has not chosen the correct means to access such information to give it to the public, then they're infringing on my right to privacy. So for me, at the end of the day, it goes back to us balancing the fundamental freedoms that we enjoy as people, but then also respecting other people's rights. Yeah.
Very elaborate. Thank you so much. So I will drag you into the conversation, Yasmin, and I want us to talk about policy gaps, especially legal and policy gaps in addressing technology-facilitated violence against women and girls. From your perspective, what gaps are there and what reforms do we need to make women safer online?
Okay, so as Beatrice mentioned earlier, we do have legislations in place. Yeah, she mentioned the Computer Misuse Act and its amendment, the Constitution, obviously, from the beginning, or the other laws she didn't truly mention was the Uganda Communications Act, because when there's issues that arise and they need to take down information, usually it's UCC that, you know, relies on the Uganda Communications Act to, you know, pull down information or something like that. And one of the things that amused me recently is also the Domestic Violence Act of 2010, because I was actually looking at it. But this is quite interesting for me, because domestic violence has gotten a new medium to, you know, expand because of the digital spaces. Now it's not just when I'm at home, it's also when I'm not at home that, like, there's violence, you know, vested upon me and stuff like that. So yeah, we have these laws, but as she said earlier, implementation is one of the greatest things, an enforcement gap. Okay, so let's start from what is actually in the laws. She mentioned different laws being explained and provided for, and their sentence and so on and so forth in the, you know, in the different acts, whether it's in the Computer Misuse Act, whether it's in the, you know, whilst some of these issues are there, not all of them are provided for, and not all of them are defined, and even those that are defined, they're not properly defined, which creates vagueness. And anybody who has worked with the law, who has gone to court, who has had to defend a case, the enemy of justice is vagueness, because the minute a provision is vague, it means that anybody can exploit it for any outcome. It means even if someone has truly done something sinister, they can exploit that loophole in definition or in, you know, in the provision to come up with a defense and to just walk away without being held accountable. So for me, that's one of the hugest issues, the inability to properly and with precision define these offenses. From the beginning, the law must specifically state what these issues are. It should not leave it up for, you know, interpretation, or for, you know, for people to come up with their own definitions and so on and so forth. Something else is which came up with the Sylvia Rabogo case is rapid response. We do not have rapid response to anything. First of all, if you know technology, you know things happen like this. Today, 5 minutes after they post your intimate images, after they post an intimate video or whatever doxing information they've put out there, in minutes you are viral. Yeah. You cannot have a legal system that takes months to respond. By that time, the damage has already been done. Yeah. Okay, and to some people, it's almost irreversible. So what is the point of me asking for an injunction that they're going to grant after months, or for a takedown, you know, notice that they're going to get in court after months when, you know, all the damage has already been done to me? I've already gotten, you know, my job has been affected, my life has been affected. Say I have children, my, like, intimate images are out there, my children, do you understand? So when you look at it, there is a need for rapid response action. Okay, we need to come up with provisions that require immediate action, whether it's takedowns, whether it is, you understand. The other gap that I tend to also bring out is the fact that you're looking at the lack of enforcement. And while I'm talking about enforcement, I even look at it at the side of the tech companies. Even if court was to give out this court order, there is no obligation on tech companies to actually comply. So recently we had that Google case that required Google to comply with the Data Privacy and Data Protection and Privacy Act, which is also one of the, obviously, the laws that protect your rights online. There was a recent decision to that effect, but the question is, will Google actually comply? So all of us are actually waiting to see whether Google will comply. And this is going to set a precedent for all the other tech companies. If Google, which is a tech giant, sets its foot down and goes like, no,
it's not that big.
What is Uganda going to do? Because that is also something we need to know. We need to find out. Because does the PDPO have the capacity to enforce that, you know, judgment on Google? The same question will arise every time you have an issue of tech-facilitated gender-based violence. Do our courts have the capacity to enforce the judgments that they give? So if they did give out a takedown order, or if they did give out a, can they enforce it, say, on Elon Musk, on like X? Can they? Anybody who has reported on X knows the issue that, like, sometimes they don't even, like, do anything. They don't take down that information. Like, so what are the repercussions if that? So that's what one of the issues that arises. Whilst we can have these judgments, where we can have these remedies, the question is, can they be enforced? And the other thing that is also there is when it comes to evidence, the ability to preserve evidence. When it comes to such cases in online violence and all that, the entire case rests on digital traces. Things like screenshots, things like URLs, things like, you understand, that information that is all online, how is it preserved such that it can then later be used in court? Remember, you're going to go for a court process, or you're going to, whether you're going to seek for your orders or whatever, you need evidence of the action. So what happens if someone deletes that information? What happens if, you know, it's lost online, or if you try to retrieve it and you don't retrieve it well and it can't be used in court? Remember, court has rules when it comes to evidence that is provided before it. So when you look at all of these things, and you know, you're going to go to the police person that takes your case, and they're going to be like, do you have evidence? You're asking me? I'm here to report the crime. Like, you understand? Most of the time, it's the victim that is required to provide this evidence, as opposed to the police actually retrieving this evidence instead. So for me, these are some of the issues that you're going to find. Whilst we do have the laws, they're not comprehensive enough. They don't cover specific things, and these are not like small gaps. These are actually extremely huge gaps that will affect an outcome of a case, an outcome of, you know, your complaint. And sometimes when you ask for takedowns online, they ask you for, you know, legal documentation. Or if you ask, even if you go to tech companies and you ask for them to send you that, you know, the evidence that is online that someone has posted, or if, for example, since we talked about anonymity earlier, if you want them to reveal the person behind that anonymous shroud, because sometimes you can't just sue anybody. Imagine someone's called, you know, she talked about something cat or whatever, you understand? Someone has used something completely out of this world, and you cannot sue them. You have to actually sue the actual person. When you go to court, you can't sue their anonymous name. You must sue the person, which means you have to go back to the tech company and request for that person's identity to be revealed. So when you look at a lot of these legal complications that come with online gender-based violence, it becomes very, very difficult to, you know, move forward. It also makes it difficult for the laws to work well. Yeah.
So maybe just add on what Yasmin has said. When it comes to implementation, I think I think most of the laws only work for people that are in high positions. I don't know. Because like I'll come out, I'll abuse maybe let's say like an MP or the speaker, and then I'll be reprimanded. But then like when I come out and abuse maybe Yasmin, and like the law won't help me at all. But then like the law will not, like when let's say I abuse the speaker, the law will work very fast. But then like if I abuse Sanyu, the law will be slow, you get. So I feel like it is I don't know if it is selective implementation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, actually to say more towards that, actually one of the things that disturbed me a lot with the Sylvia Rawogo's case is if a woman in such a high powered area could not achieve justice, what does that say about women who don't even have that kind of, you know, recognition? Because usually, as we have seen, the person of the president, the Kawaka, when these cases came up, they were quick to find justice. But obviously, when it was a woman that required the same treatment, this wasn't what happened. So selective implementation, obviously, yes, definitely is also a problem here.
Yeah, speaking of selective application of the law and selective implementation and such, how do tech companies respect court orders from, say, other countries, say countries in the global north that have bigger influence? Do they do that? And if so, how can Uganda tap into the international legal frameworks to make it safer for women?
Okay, so first of all, you have to realize that in a lot of these countries, these tech companies have offices. So when you sue them, you actually have a physical institution that you're going to work with. So you know where to serve everything, you know who, they have assets even in a lot of those countries, but they don't have any assets here. So if you do implement a judgment, what are you going to attach to the information? So it gets very more complicated because of that. They don't have a physical presence in our country, which is why, of course, one of the reasons the PDPO required them to register themselves with the office, because they don't actually have a physical presence. And on top of that, yes, it sometimes also comes down to the user numbers. Other countries may have bigger numbers. Also, they also have regional integration. For example, the EU, they are more capable of enforcing a lot of their judgments, a lot of their requirements, because the EU is not one country. The EU is a number of countries. So if you mess with the EU, you're going to suffer in that entire area. So you find that they have better institutions set up to enforce a lot of their requirements. Our institutions are still being set up. You have to realize that the PDPO has only been set up recently. Just recently, 2019, 2020, the PDPO was set up. So it's really still just trying to gain momentum. It does not have the same enforcement capability as, say, the EU or, say, the US. So when you look at it like that, you also realize we do have a little bit of a disadvantage as a global South country, as a small country with a small population. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Maybe in relation to that as well, in addition to what she has said, why enforcement could be easier in the global north compared to the global south. Again, we go back to the power dynamics, right? We are the global south. To start from there, we are the global south and this is the global north. And that's where technological advancements are higher compared to us. So at the end of the day, it goes back to who holds power. Some days people are not looking at issues of digital rights, issues of internet access, or basically as an issue of now our sovereignty, right? It's a sovereignty issue now. And so how we've seen that these, for example, in the US, we've seen that Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook, Instagram, he's usually called upon to give accountability on issues to do with privacy, how reliable his platforms are. The same thing has happened to TikTok. It's because they have the power too, right? They hold the financial power, but then also because that, of course, the Silicon Valley is in the US and that is the center of all power, and they have the capacity to do so. And likewise, the tech platforms don't want to run out of business. And so we find that they are more receptive to laws within the global north. You find that already, once a law is passed, you find that they're already implementing. I'm going to give you an example. The most recent example, of course, I was telling people recently, the UK, the government was like, you have to give us access to people's information, back-end access. We have to, so at the end of the day, we found that right now Apple has removed end-to-end encryption for people within UK. The new people who are using the cloud, the iCloud, to store that kind of information. So we are seeing that the implementation, it depends on who has
the power.
Yes, who has the power at the end of the day. Once the GDPR was passed, we found that most tech platforms were actually ensuring that they improved on their privacy settings to ensure that everything that they are doing is actually in line with the new regulations within the EU. So for me, it goes back to who holds the power. Who is the holder of power? Yes, who is the holder of power? And again, how much impact do we have on the tech platforms as the global South, right? If they're not feeling any form of economic pinch when they're out of Africa, then forget about it. Their ability to actually comply with local laws within Africa will be a bit slower. They would take their time to actually take on.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We'll dive more into that. So, Murungi, let's speak more to the realities of women, especially in Uganda. So, we women in Uganda have less access to the internet compared to men because of barrier costs, maybe culture norms, digital literacy on top of that. So, how does limited access to technology make women more vulnerable to abuse when they go online?
Thank you so much, Nancy. You know, when we talk about tech-facilitated gender-based violence, for me, it relates back to realities like you mentioned, the things that happen in our houses, the same things that keep happening online. So what limitations? You've talked about cultural barriers. For me, it is one of the things that still stands out for me up to now. You know, simple things as a woman holding a phone will limit you because they think you're becoming immoral, you're becoming, I don't know, you're just taking over men's spaces because they believe that tech world is for men. So such things, also when we talk about internet costs, we've seen our service providers, MTN, Airtel, increase these internet costs every now and then, so which has limited women from accessing internet. We've also seen, we've been talking about the gaps in policies and the laws that we have. First and foremost, these policies are written in English. Most of the communities we serve do not even know English. You get, they can't even pronounce, I don't know, the Computer Misuse Act. What does it do? What does it mean? So the fact that, yes, we have a global language that we have to all follow, but at the end of it all, where does it leave a bare woman who even never went to class, who never attended education? So such simple things really limit women from accessing the internet. We've been talking about tech companies being accountable, holding them accountable. We've talked about reporting mechanisms being slow and taking longer periods to happen. So I feel also those are limitations of women participating in the online spaces. I don't know if I'm running away from your question, but such simple things. Digital literacy, you know, when we talk about digital literacy, you always think it's a luxury. You know, tech things. But simple things as installing 2FA, installing, having strong passwords, having a strong password manager on your phone. Those so small things, if women are not empowered to have digital literacy skills, basic digital literacy skills, also we've talked about the laws being complicated and easy to understand to a layman's language. You know, of recent we've been so much on TikTok, yeah? You just keep scrolling and watching videos. How about the Computer Misuse Act being simplified into a video? Don't you think it will be easy for women to access these platforms? Don't you think if our terms and conditions were simplified to a one-pager, to a half a page, and not having to read documents and documents for terms and conditions of using WhatsApp, using Facebook, using TikTok? So if we have such things in place, I believe we shall be able to lift a woman out there who wants to use the internet, hence limiting internet usage. Sorry.
It's all right.
Yes.
It's all right. Let me come back to you. Let me come back to you. I'd like to ask Sanyu a follow-up question. So how do we bridge this digital divide while ensuring that inclusion doesn't mean increased exposure?
I feel like I have explained a few of those, but how do we increase inclusion? One is by bringing up women into these spaces, just like now. It is women speaking, and this is the show that CCG has, running around to include women in spaces. If we could hold tech companies accountable, when a woman reports online, what happens? What is the process of reporting? How simple is that space? We are including women in these spaces. If I call out Irene tomorrow, who shared my images online without my consent, how fast is that process going to be? If I go to police and report to this male presenting human that I was violated online, how quick are they to respond to my case? What measures do we have as a country in Uganda that support women in reporting these cases, apart from just having our policies and laws put out there? How best can we include women? One, the other is, I talked about digital literacy. If we teach and educate women about simple digital security skills, we shall be able to include them, because then they won't be able to face the harassment that is going online. They'll be able to navigate digital threats. They'll be able to navigate things like doxing, phishing, that keeps happening again and again and again. If we do not take digital literacy as a luxury and just implement it in schools, we've seen China implement AI, the use of technology, way from down in baby class, yeah? As a child is growing up, they know how to use a phone, they know how to navigate digital risks, which is not happening in our country. Just talking about technology in Uganda, they'll tell you we don't have the budget for that, yeah, from Parliament. They'll tell you we cannot afford computers. We've seen computer classes basically fronted for men. Yeah, it still goes back to our cultural norms. How are we brought up from our homes? If we can change those few systems that keep limiting women from accessing these platforms, if we can control those, then I feel we shall have a bit of inclusion.
Thank you so much. Yasmin, you had something to say.
Earlier on, when you talk digital literacy, I need people to understand that it does, like, general literacy aside, even educated women actually lack digital literacy. They lack understanding of simple things like privacy settings. People don't actually know you can put your accounts on private to control the kind of people who are seeing your information or who have access to you. Yeah, they don't understand very simple two-factor authentication, VPNs, the use of VPNs. They don't actually understand these very simple online safety measures. Also, she talked about local languages, and for me, I feel this is extremely important. General literacy is a different thing, because not everybody understands the English language. Yeah. And this is very dangerous because the internet in Uganda is in the English language. If we want to make it safer for women, we need to have local language integration into online spaces. Even things as simple as government websites being available in people's local languages. Okay? Even when we do, it's one thing to go and do digital literacy trainings in like Arua or like, you understand? And you will do the trainings in their local languages, but when they go online, they go and find English. And then it becomes very difficult for them, okay? So for me, I feel like that is a very important core thing to make it safer for women, because if I don't understand what's going on, I can't protect myself.
You know, Yasmin, it also goes back to reporting, right? I just want to share something. You know, we'll use our local language so much. So if I am abused in Uganda and I am reporting in English, of course the tech company is going to inquire me to translate. Remember, I don't know English, so where does that leave a woman?
Not even that, they can't track local language scams or insults. Or besides, something that's considered violence in Uganda may not be considered violence globally. So it becomes a problem because the Ugandan context is not really understood. So you might find that there is a type of slur or a type of insult that is specific to the Ugandan population. Like it's imagery, but it's specific to Uganda. You will understand it, the Ugandan population will understand it, but they won't. So when you report it, they'll be like, for us, we don't see the problem.
Actually, Nancy, when you go on TikTok, you'll find that most people that abuse on TikTok, they use Luganda, and they'll tell you, actually, let me even speak in Luganda, because if I speak English, they'll put, exactly. So that they use that opportunity because they know TikTok doesn't know Luganda and all that. They won't hold them accountable. So like, they keep on abusing people and doing all funny things on that platform.
Okay, thank you. Now that we have come to you and brought you into the conversation, let's talk tech companies, yeah? So ideally, now we are not saying, we are not talking about the realities, but we're talking about ideally, what role should they be doing in tackling harassment, in dealing with abuses and all those things? What specific things should they be touching on ideally?
Actually, I think first and foremost, thank you so much, Nancy. They have to look into the privacy thing, the privacy part, because we take a look at MTN. I think that is the most common telecom company that has had us on the chokehold with scamming, the mobile money scamming and all that. Someone you call and they'll be like, I work with MTN, I've deposited amount of money on your phone, please, what you get?
Yes.
And I've not had that experience with any other telecom company apart from MTN, because I think we also had an encounter our house help had. So like they even arrested her, and people have complained, I think over time, even social media people have done campaigns, but then it has not done anything about it. So I think the telecom companies have to tighten their privacy, I don't know. Yeah, their privacy standards. I don't know, something like that. Yeah, because like we're really suffering. And then maybe another thing, they could work with the civil society organizations, because like we work with different groups of people, different groups of communities. So they would know the needs that different communities need in order to like enhance their communication, their digital presence and participation.
So what would the partnership look like between tech companies, civil society and government? What if there was an MOU or something like that, what would this partnership look like between these actors?
So we see telecom companies provide us with data actually. And actually one of the barriers that we have right now is data costs. Data is very expensive. You buy your data of, let's say you buy a data of 1 month, it gets done in 1 week. And you're like, what is this? So, and that will leave a woman behind. So a woman who doesn't have a daily income, who doesn't earn like that enough money, will be left out in the digital space because they won't have like the money to be buying data all the time. So maybe we've seen companies like Irene, they put up like Wi-Fi, different Wi-Fi spaces. Maybe they could provide different hotspots for Wi-Fi so that like no one is left behind. Yeah.
Well, thank you. And again, how do we hold them accountable, the tech companies, without without stifling free expression of women or taking women out of the digital space? How do we hold digital companies accountable?
Digital companies, we're talking about?
As say, for example, in your advocacy as civil society, how would you propose that they hold digital companies accountable, or to bring them to book so that they can curb all these sorts of harassment?
I think it's more of advocacy, of course, because like there is no other, like you just have to come out, get like the evidence from the perpetrators and all that, and then like those digital companies maybe like have to come out and give us why this is happening. Let's say my information has been given out, so, and then I didn't give out my information to any other person apart from your company. Then why is someone calling me and they're like, give me money or something like that, yet it's only you has my information. So you have to come out and explain to me how that person Obamugwanya got my information. And
Yes.
May I say something to that effect?
Yeah.
Okay, when it comes to ISPs, internet service providers, for the ones in Uganda that are providing internet, I feel like we need PDPO to be stricter with them, because they hold a lot of our personal information, and this information is all over the place. Suddenly some random person is calling you, I am from Airtel, and I'm calling you, you haven't registered your number, as in, you understand? So my issue is they are very lax with our personal information, which we always find everywhere. So we need the PDPO, one, to be very, very strict with ISPs, because they're the ones who are losing our information. They're the ones who are, also facilitating some of this. Tech-facilitated violence isn't just the words. It is also fraud. It is economic. You can actually call someone and steal their money. That's still tech-facilitated violence. You understand? So when someone steals a woman's money that she has worked so hard for, day in and day out, like, you understand? So they should be held accountable. They have access. This person can actually even point out the number, because I have had this so many times. I've actually even reported it to their, and been like, this number sent me this, and this was the information. I had all the evidence, and they were like, we'll take care of it. That's the last I heard of it. I don't know, like, what they did. I don't know. You understand? We actually report a lot of these instances to them, but they don't do anything. As when it comes to platforms, like tech companies, I feel like we are not doing our best, or we are not trying so hard to use our regional capacity to implement. because I feel like the AU would have a greater chance of forcing tech companies and digital platforms to conform and to comply with, the better privacy, better content moderation in Africa and stuff like even language integration in Africa. But a lot of our regional bodies are not doing their job. They're not, or at least, okay, they are, because the EU is doing a lot in the policy department. But what about the implementation department? Like, what are they doing to ensure that they actually, get this stuff done? Yeah, for me, that,
Beatrice then Sanyu.
Yeah. So getting back to accountability. So for me, the issue of tech accountability, first of all, my greatest question every time we are being asked how we can hold the tech companies accountable for the violations that are occurring. First of all, when we look at how these platforms come up, how these platforms are made, right from ideation phase. Are our views even consulted? That if I'm going to make an app for Uganda, what should it look like? Are our views even consulted? For me, that is the starting point before we say, oh, now we are going to hold you accountable. Because as far as I'm concerned, we're just end users. We just go to our phones, we download whatever app that is there. But then you realize that certain apps are not basically for our context, right? Except that now there are apps that are being developed by Ugandans that can tell you, okay, you are now in Chigowa, you're on Chigowa Road, right? So we are having Ugandan developers who are equally coming up with platforms that are specific to our context. But where does this take me? That our conversations right now are more of ensuring that tech companies do not think of safety as an afterthought, right? Yes. And this requires that tech companies, before you come up with a platform, you go down to the people who are the end users of these products and ask them the relevant questions. It eliminates bias, because we've had platforms before that have been built but are discriminatory, right? We all know about the Amazon app, right? That was discriminating employees. The data that was fed into this AI was basically data of men, right? How does a resume for a man look like, right? So it was eliminating women, right? So at the end of the day, have the tech companies done the due diligence of coming down to the people and collecting data that is representative of the people? At the end of the day, have they also installed systems within the platform that make safety a priority, right? For example, how do we know that a platform has safety, or it is safe? First of all, when you look at your ability to be able to block someone, such measures should be present, right? And that is one of the ways we can curb technology-facilitated violence. We're talking about just mere blocking. Who can access your tweets? You know that you can have protected tweets, right? That is an avenue to ensure that you are safe within the online spaces. It's just that basic, knowing how the safety measures that are within a platform. We have alternatives, let's say on Twitter, of a person who can respond to your tweets, who can, how have you navigated search, for example. So most platforms are moving towards that to ensure that safety is embedded within their...
Thank you, Beatrice.
Yeah.
Sanyu.
Just to add on the accountability part, most of the time we talk about, like what we've been sharing, we talk about reporting, we talk about blocking, we talk about 2FA. Have you seen any report from Meta about survivors that have been helped? How are we holding them accountable? If we do not have any report for survivors, we've not seen any cases come up that, maybe in Uganda, 20 women reported over violence cases, and we worked on this, this was done. maybe I might be misinforming, but I haven't seen any of those reports anywhere. I've not seen them on the internet. So how else are we holding them accountable? Because accountability starts with you presenting the evidence that this is what I have worked on. This is what we've had this number of cases of Twitter, I don't know, violations online. How many of those are women? How many women have reported? So simple things as presenting evidence from these big companies could be one of the first measures we can do to hold them accountable.
Thank you. Yes.
But then also reporting from our police. This year, the government issued our annual crime report. And when we went to the section of cyber crimes, it was just clustered cyber crimes, right? And they showed us a graph. In this year, it was this number, this number, this number, right? And at the end of the day, there is no categorization. If the cyber crimes had been categorized, oh, this was the number of fraud cases, this was the number of tech-facilitated violence, then we would base on that data to go and hold these people accountable. To show them, okay, in Uganda, this number of young people or women or men are reporting to have experienced this kind of violence within your platform. What are you doing about it? But now that we don't have such data, we can't advocate. Why? People are not reporting. Why? Because technology-facilitated violence is actually not looked at as a form of GBV. It is treated as
something less serious.
Something less serious. It's
not
as bad as a slap.
It's not real violence. Most people think it's not real violence. Like
it is just like, don't be too emotional. People are gaslighting.
It is not as bad as a physical slap. You go and abuse them.
You know, you'll actually report to police.
Put out the information, so don't even report.
You're the one who started.
Yeah, you started. So
you'll actually report to police, and the man will ask you, were you beaten? Are you alive? Can you move back home? I mean, if you can, and your response will always be, yes, I can. But it doesn't end there. It still goes back to your personal life.
Omega, you've been real quiet, but we've been
learning and learning.
But we've been talking about, I guess, feminist solutions. Yes, and that was really going to be my next question. What contribution would you have towards this? What do you think we should do?
Feminist solutions. I just have a few thoughts based off what everyone was sharing. First of all, when it comes to technology-facilitated gender-based violence, you have to understand that it's a very unique form of violence because, again, I shared previously and said Murungi was in that conversation that the world seems to be catching up. It's like one of those things you learn as you go. It's like growing up. Maybe right now if I'm 26 or 27, I can only be 27 once. So that is the same thing that is happening to the world right now with the internet. Everyone is sort of stepping here, let's step here and see what works. So even as we speak right now, what I'm hearing is multiple stakeholders. You have the state, right, which is Uganda. It has the right and the duty to protect its citizens, whether that jurisdiction is territorial or extraterritorial. So you remember how they used to say that land is anything that you own to the ground and above. You see, so those airwaves, because most of these messages are coming through airwaves. So you have the state that has the right to protect its what? Its citizens. And that is what we are grappling with, the PDPO, the NITA, Uganda Communications Commission. Everyone is trying to see how do we protect our people. But then you have the end user themselves, right? So this goes into what Beatrice was sharing about the constitution. The state has sovereignty over its country. You have the individual, the end user, which is me, right? I'm saying I have the right to access what? Information. And I have the right to communicate with other people. But then you also have big tech that is saying there is the element of business, right? As we are a business company, we do not care about any of these things. Why is it that the person that is owning a supermarket can do what they want and we cannot do what we want, right? So it's very important to look at it from that particular angle. That everyone is fighting, right? Everyone is sort of trying to find their place and see where they are, right? So when you look at it and you divide it in that angle, for me, again, a quote that I don't believe when you go for these data protection workshops, they say, data protection starts with you. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't, because if you're looking at the end user is the weakest person in that link. You see? you're the weakest. Even if you turn on all the data privacy controls, as long as big tech, you know, they say big tech, big pharma, they're just big. I don't even know. They're just
Companies.
and they're just companies. Eh? One thing that I don't agree with is this bigification of things and people. They're just companies. They're LLCs. By the way, if you woke up tomorrow, Nancy, and you said that you want to do something about it, you can actually do something about it, right? She was sharing and talking about African regional mechanisms. Eh? It's not hard. It may seem very, very hard right now because Elon Musk has made it seem like he's the most richest man in the world, and he has this shroud of untouchability. It is in fact not there, right? So if Uganda goes to the African Union, and I know I'm all over the place, but it's just because so many thoughts were shared and my mind is everywhere. But if Uganda goes to the African Union and says that we are a state party to these conventions, right?
Yes.
And these conventions are not being implemented in our country, what does the African Union do about that? The African Union says that as a state party, the rest of the African Union states are what? Are bound, right? So there comes in the element of collective responsibility. So you see the African Union as a bloc, standing up to big tech. What does that look like? That looks like what? A deprivation of the market, right? On this side of the global south, which is, by the way, growing at a very alarming rate. So you see that big tech can actually be held what? Accountable. It's just about those same lines that have been what? I've been sharing. So what is a feminist solution to this? I don't know if the English is the one that is confusing. I don't know how a feminist solution differs from a normal solution. But the feminist solution is looking at the word data justice. So what is data justice?
Yeah.
Data justice is making sure that there is fairness and inclusivity in data practices, right? So how does that look like? Does that look like the right to advocate at those different regional mechanisms? Does that look like, maybe before we even continue, I have an example that is very, very close to my heart and that really hurt me. When Moses Ali was going to pick up his nomination forms, you saw that
the trolling.
It's just unnecessary. Are you people okay? This is an elderly person. You know that the video was in such a way that you could, if you were an empathetic person, you couldn't even look at it, right?
Yes.
Because someone is actually, and then it is the same Ugandans that are saying, you know what, even elderly people can contest to go to what? To parliament. Yeah? So, and then I remember then there came the...
And right now the Rebecca Kayaga.
Then there came the accusations of the disease he might have. You see? The disease he might have. But all these things in normal communications is what is masked as, for lack of a better word, just disrespect, right?
Yeah.
You pretend that you have the right to express yourself. Beatrice was putting it very humbly when she said that you have to weigh the rights and the responsibilities. No. The freedom of expression is one of those rights that is dependent on other rights. You've seen it, I think. Of course, the government of Uganda has implemented it in a way that is not fitting. Let me say with Stella and Nyanzi, they have turned. There are those people who they wear the bag the other way around, but they have, you know, those children. If they say you're not supposed to steal from someone's laptop or stone, you know those things. Like, so you turn your bag the other way around, so that if the thief comes, they don't have access. So that's the way data protection is being implemented in this in this country. So what is a feminist solution? A feminist solution is a regulatory solution, right? Without systems, there is nothing you can do. To get into this place, you have to have an invitation from the Center for Constitutional Governance. So to actually have data protection, actually, because everything we are speaking about, by the way, this tech-facilitated gender-based violence, it is just data protection. It is data protection. Is your data being protected? Are you being misinformed? Is someone maligning things and things like that? So data protection must actually start with the regulatory frameworks. So this talk that Uganda is a small economy and Uganda doesn't contribute so much to that. No, by the way, if you actually even take Uganda, if you get the users that are in Uganda and take them away from Facebook, you see how Facebook will panic.
Yes.
Because you will have set a precedent for other East African countries to do that. So regulation number one, are all the companies in this country registered with the Personal Data Protection Office. are you registered? Let's start from there, right? Then when you leave those particular companies, do you have all these multinational big tech companies registered? Then away from those big tech companies being registered, you have to ask yourself again another question of how are we making sure that big tech is actually being held what? Accountable. Because they are dealing, remember the complex relationship that we talked about of everyone's rights being next to each other? So they are dealing with they're dealing with a segment of the market that is problematic, and then they are being allowed day by day to continue working in that field. So is it that international bodies or countries are going to have to come back to the drawing board and sit and have to form a body that is going to regulate how the internet is working, right? So the feminist solution is really just to make sure that there are systems and regulations in place that are protecting women.
Thank you so much, Omega. So we have first come to the end of this show, and now I would like us ladies in 1 minute, please, 1 minute, to give us your concluding remarks, a call out, you know, just in 1 minute. And I'll start with Irene, and then we'll move it this way, just 1 minute, and then we'll conclude.
Okay, thank you so much, Nancy. I think my first
call out, a recommendation, anything.
My first recommendation would be inclusion of women in policy making processes, because you won't be there formulating laws that are protecting maybe, let's say, women against tech-facilitated gender-based violence, and then it is the men that are in the room. You, like, those men don't know our needs. They might be having just a little bit of the things that they're just assuming, maybe because they've heard us talking about and all that. But then, like, if we include the women in the policy making processes, it would be a good idea, and it would really bring out the woman out there. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I was going to say something. I was going to say there are some women in the room, but
Yes, I was going to say we should skip Omega because she was the last speaker. I was going to effectively advocate for myself. But in just 1 minute, my closing remarks is to say that hold all stakeholders accountable. Something I forgot to mention was that it's really interesting that in the world of the digital world, the question of identity has not yet been properly defined. You've seen that online you have to even pay to be verified, right?
Yeah.
So when you think about that, that is just profit making at the expense of people. So do we need to have audit processes to see that the number of people that are in real life is the number of people that are manifesting, that when we say there is one Omega Aloyo, there is indeed one Omega Aloyo and not fan account. So I think for me, not to take up so much of your time, it's really to make sure that all stakeholders are held accountable, but the key stakeholder is the person that is actually bringing data platforms to people.
Yeah. Well, the new gold mine of capitalism is information. Yasmin, please.
Okay, so what can I say? I have like 10 million things running around in my mind. But for me, one, I feel like for the Ugandan context, local language integration is a huge deal. We need that so much, even if it's just for the government sites, or even just Ugandan-based tech spaces. Because if even the Ugandan tech spaces cannot include local language integration, then what hopes do we have of making big tech also do the same thing? And along with that is we need to integrate digital safety trainings in everything that we do for our children in school, because they're the ones who are online, by the way, for our children in school, for the women in the marketplaces, for also it's the simple thing to know that any violence online is actually real violence. For me, that should be the takeaway from this, no matter what. Online violence is also real violence, because most people don't actually believe that. They think that they're just making jokes, but these jokes that you're making at the expense of someone else's mental state. Yeah.
Okay, it's a good hashtag though. Online violence is real violence. Okay, Sanyu.
Yes, thank you. Online violence is real violence. I think we should also stop taking digital literacy as a luxury, but rather something that we need to implement in our daily lives. We've talked of simple things as 2FA, installing good passwords, strong passwords. So if we can educate women, have computer studies in our education systems, and educate a young girl, a young child out there, I believe we shall have an internet of that is full of women celebrating themselves rather than being violated or ashamed. And yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, Beatrice.
Yes, as a parting shot for me, one of the interventions I think we should have as we hold tech platforms accountable is to ensure that all the tech platforms consider issues of safety and privacy as a fundamental issue, because without safety and privacy interventions, then we are unable to fight technology-facilitated violence. But then also we have to bring the population up to speed on the forms of technology-facilitated violence, because every day new forms of violence are rising.
Yeah.
For example, the use of deepfakes, it is equally rising. We've not yet seen it in Uganda, but I know all of us have seen Taylor Swift, right? And unfortunately, these deepfakes are equally affecting young children, where we are having people who are circulating sexual images of children. So at the end of the day, with the rise of technology, new forms of violence are propping up, and as the population, the young people who are using the internet, we have to be up to speed with these forms of violence so that we are able to protect ourselves and be able to report, because with knowledge we shall be able to report, and hence we shall be able to have proper laws that address those specific things. So
Thank you so much. We must continue to advocate for stronger laws, better accountability from online platforms, and more digital literacy to protect and empower women in virtual spaces. I've summarized it well, have I?
Yes.
Thank you so much, our viewers and our dear panelists and the studio crew that has been with us till the end. My name is Nancy Caroline Ayot. Thank you for watching Women Speaking. Make sure to subscribe and like, also comment and circulate this information, because who knows who might get access to digital literacy for the very first time. We are so happy to have you on Women Speaking. Join us again next Tuesday. Thank you.